Hello and welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. And today is a special day because we are starting a brand new journal in our Watercolor Journal series. So we just finished our third journal and I think we have 90 some plus different entries. So we're going to start another one today. So we'll start by going over how to start a journal. And I know a lot of people are very fearful of cracking open that brand new, beautiful, pristine journal and messing it up in some way. Well, my best advice to you is going to be start with something simple. Start with something super simple. And I'll give you a couple of ideas and then we're going to paint something simple today to just get ourselves going. But you got to go and just do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is a Bao Hong watercolor journal. This is approximately 6x9. They are 100%, I'm using the 100% cotton, 140 pound cold press one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my journal, and we have this like front page here. You don't paint on this page. It's just a protective page. This would be our first page, but I'm just going to date the inside of my journal. And I just stick with months. I go through them so quickly. So we're in May 2024. And then I will, when I finish it, I'll put in, it'll probably be July 2024, most likely. I'll put that in there, and that way when I keep them in order, I kind of know. I don't need to know the exact date that I did something, but just the general time frame and which order my journals go in as I create them. But you can definitely date your pages if you want to. People do and organize their journals in all different kinds of ways, so there's no wrong way to do that. So, and then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just gently open up my journal, flatten it down. Then I have these lovely binder clips. These are my favorite thing. Maybe not my favorite thing, but they are definitely a very useful tool. And I can clip that down, and then I can even clip down that front page over here. So just holding everything down and in place so that when we start to paint, everything is nice and flat. And you can move these around really easily versus like taping it down or something like that. You can just pick it up and move it if it's in the way of whatever you're actually painting. And there are smaller ones too. So you could use a really tiny one and it'll serve the same purpose. You just need to clamp it down to a couple pages behind it. There we go. All right, let's get started. All right, so my first piece of advice when starting a journal is to keep it simple and paint something you know or that you love. If you're a super beginner, this can be just practicing basic skills on the first page, but getting over the intimidation of I have to create like a masterpiece on my first page, just don't even try to attempt it. Use it as a warm-up page. So we're going to paint something we know, we're going to keep it simple, paint something simple that we know we can feel successful with. So for some people that might be painting a simple washes, so breaking up your page and painting gradient washes or simple washes. I am going to give you a couple of examples of some things, and I'm going to do it at a smaller scale so I can show you a couple of different things that might be helpful to you. So I'm just taping this out. And you can do the same. So maybe breaking it up into smaller pieces. Actually, I'm only going to do half of this page over here. So I'm going to do two smaller pieces here and then one larger piece over here. Now you don't have to break it up. You can just do one page of one of these techniques, or you can break it up if that's less intimidating to you and just do one little bit at a time. But a lot of people get like just nervous. They think that first page, they're going to open their book, they're going to see it every day. They want it to be perfect. They want it to be spectacular and beautiful, and kind of sets the tone or the mood for the journal. You have to like let go of that a little bit. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. But one of the things I will say, if you're really nervous about starting a journal and you just want that first page to be useful, is to do some swatching of your paints. So creating a swatch card in your journal, like the front page can literally just be a swatch of all of your paint colors. So this is mine. I created in the beginning. I messed up right here, but I use this all the time. It's not in a journal, but it's of my palette right here, and the order that all the paints go in and their names. So I pull it out all the time, especially when I can't remember the name of a color. So that can be a very useful way to use your first page in a journal. And then the seal is broken and all of that intimidation of being the first page is gone. And it's very simple. Maybe you don't need a swatch card. Maybe you already have one like this. So one of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to do some very simple washes with some silhouettes on them. And we're going to start with that. So I'm going to do some of those over here. Let's see. Okay, so I am using the Bao Sketchbook Core Paint. If this is your first time here, all of the supplies I use on a regular basis are listed in the description. I use Core, Q-O-R by Golden, but whatever brand that you have or use is wonderful. Everybody has their different style and taste. I'm using a silver black velvet brush today, but I have a handful of different brushes. Princeton, silver black velvet, a couple different type of Princeton. I have Velvet Touch. I have Princeton Select. I have Aqua Elite. So whatever brushes you have will do. I gravitate towards most of my brushes are round brushes. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with my silver black velvet. I'm actually going to switch to my size 12. And because I'm going to do a nice wash. So I'm just getting my brush wet. And I'm going to do a wash on the background here. But I'm going to do somewhat of a gradient. It doesn't have to be a perfect gradient. So I picked out Phthalo blue, and I'm going to mix it with a little Payne's gray to create this navy-ish color. And I'm also going to take some Dioxazine purple and mix that with a little Payne's gray as well to get a slightly more muted purple color. And then I am going to do basically a wash. I'm going to start from the bottom, but I don't want this to be a perfect wash. I want it to be kind of cloudy and dusky. And this is great for beginners because you're not worrying about the perfection of getting your wash perfectly graded all the way up and not having any lines or any splotches. This one is going to be splotchy. Take a little more paint. And now that everything is wet, I'm going to use wet on wet. So I'm going to use wet paint on a wet surface. And I'm just going to throw in some darker, more saturated color along the bottom. Rinse that off. I'm going to pick up some of my purple, my purpley gray, so that's the Dioxazine purple and the Payne's gray mixed together, and I'm just going to drop some of that in on the top here. Rinse my brush off. And so my brush is just damp right now. There's no extra paint on it. I'm just kind of zhuzhing around that purple that's already on there. So there we go. We've created a nice, lovely atmospheric wash for the background. A little purple hazy sky, darker foreground here, and then lighter kind of in the center here. And I'm just pulling out color now. There we go. And I might add in just a little bit more I'm going to put a silhouette over this after it dries. And a silhouette is just flat, dark paint. Usually black or Payne's gray, but it doesn't always have to be. There we go. All right, so let's do another very soft background. Again, we want these to be easy, not intimidating. There's not a lot of room for error in terms of, it's just a background of color. There's not much you can mess up on there. Even if you end up with a flat wash, it is what it is. You're learning. All right, let's try some magenta. I'm going to do some magenta and some yellow. So I have Quinacridone magenta. I have a very dirty Diarylide yellow. So Diarylide yellow, you're not going to find that name in a lot of other brands, but it's a warm yellow. New Gamboge, or Gamboge, Gamboge, is a very similar color in a lot of other brands. Just very warm orangey yellow. All right, so let's add a little Payne's gray to our magenta to give it this dusty color. I'm going to put this down here. Rinse off my brush, mostly water. Kind of do the same thing, but I just have a different color palette now. Now I'm going to add some yellow up here. And I will tell you, core paints, if you've never used them before and you're thinking about getting them, they travel really well. What I mean by that is, like, not if you're traveling and you want to take your paints with you, they do travel well. I've taken mine with me. But what I mean is when you put wet on wet, so you put wet paint on water, they travel a lot. So you can see here, not all paints travel this much without any intervention, without any help or assistance from you. Core paints do. If you don't like that, losing that sense of control, I'm just picking up my slightly smaller brush, core paints will be challenging for you. I'm just dropping in some of that dusky purple again. And I'm playing with it kind of in the background, letting it bleed and move. And then things start to give you an idea. You get a sense of landscape, you get a sense of space, and you didn't even try to make anything specific. All right, we are going to let these backgrounds dry, and then we'll come back and put some silhouettes over the top. So let's move on to this other space. Another thing that I really love painting and I'm very comfortable with would be florals, simple florals. So for a beginner, this would be a great time to just do a nice little portrait of one type of flower, super simple, and just focusing on your technique. So let's do, pick a color. I'm gonna pick, what am I gonna pick? I kind of want to do blue, but we already did. All right, we're gonna do more of this phthalo Payne's gray combination over here. And then we'll definitely be adding Payne's gray to the center. So I am gonna do just a series of petaled flowers. Kind of around a center. I'm going to foreshorten these a little. Okay. That was my husband sneezing in the background. I wonder if you guys could hear it. So again, I'm using a size 8 round brush. And then I'm going to put a bunch of petals on here. I'm going to let them dry. I'm going to add water to make even more kind of transparent colors, but keeping them a little wonky. They don't have to be perfect. All right, I'm going to go in with a little Payne's Gray. And actually, I am going to wait for these to dry before I really get into it. So let's let those dry. I added some more color to this one. I don't know how I feel about it. It was already a little too dry before I dropped it in. But that's okay. All right, I'm going to let these dry. Maybe I'll add a few more. Trying to vary the sizes a little bit. But leaving a little bit of a center open because I know that's where I'm going to put the black center. But pick something that you like to paint or that you know you're confident in. And again, if you're a super beginner, that might just be basic skills, drawing lines with the tip of your brush, trying to do washes, making basic flowers or trees or just leaf practice. So keep it simple for that first page. All right, so after these dry, we're going to put in their centers, but we can put in, I'm going to take some sap green. I'm going to mix it right with this blue. So now we have a dark green blue, and I'm just going to get this a little darker. There we go. So sap green, phthalo blue, and some Payne's Gray all came together to make this green. I am just going to make stems. All of them are going to have individual stems that come down to the base. And when you get to another flower, you just skip over it and kind of keep going. So, pick up my brush, down, pick it up. And sometimes they end up in weird places that overlap with each other. Try not to let that throw you off. Right, these are pretty dry, or dry enough that we can go in with our Payne's Gray. So I'm going to go like around the edges with dots, and then as we get towards the center, everything gets like kind of thickened up a little bit. And like this one, I want to communicate that it's just like half. So I'm going to do half and then let that bottom half be covered up. This one too. You just see a little bit of that center. This one we can see the whole thing, so those dots can go all the way around. This one we can't see any of the center. You can definitely throw in some little leaves too if you want. Simple, simple, simple. So like little one-stroke leaves. Boop. And let's see, we could even go back. Let's make some more of that blue. We'll throw it in the purpley section here. And throw in a few more. And they can just be kind of tucked behind. They don't need their own whole centers and all of that. There we go. So we have a nice, lovely, very simple flower kind of bundle over here. And now we're going to go back to this side and draw some silhouettes on here. So common silhouettes that people like to do are like floral things or mountain ranges. We are going to do maybe some wheat grass. So let's do that on this one. So you could change brushes if you have a smaller brush that you're learning how to use, or learning to use the brush you have, but get up on the tip, practicing like having those really soft, delicate strokes. So I'm just going to do a bunch of these, and the wheat goes just shush, 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 upward and outward. Marks. And I'm going to leave some of them blank. Not everything is going to have a wheat top on it. And you can fill it up as much or as little as you want. And then you can also make some silhouettes lighter and they look like they're receding into the background, so a little lighter gray versus the darker, heavier ones. And like I said, you can get as crazy, filling it in as you want, or just keep it sparse. I'm just going to do a couple more pieces from the bottom here. There we go. All right, so we have a little wheat field. Lovely. And then in the top, let's take a little inspiration from this side over here and just do some little tiny little flowers. Maybe we'll throw in some leaves in there too. My goal is to, I put my hand right in that. Again, you should definitely let things dry so you don't have to work around them like I do. And I could let it dry. I can pause the camera and just tell you, go let it dry, and then we'll come back. I too need to practice my patience. So again, just tiny little flowers. That one got a little thick because I was rushing. And you could kind of do, this one almost looks like an iris. I can do like more stalky flowers. The great part about silhouettes is it's like you can really do whatever, and you just have to have the basic shape. And what could make this fun too is coming in with some bleed-proof white to add some accents onto it. Just rinsing my brush off. I'm going to do some lighter gray. Bits in the background, so they look like they're receding away from us a little bit. All right, and there we have it. So 2 little silhouettes on very simple wash backgrounds. We played with a little color. We played with a little wet on wet. We did something we were confident with. We're going to take off our tape because y'all get really mad if I don't take off the tape in the video. And I don't do it on purpose. It's usually, if I don't take it off, I just forget. And this is actually super expensive artist tape. It's what I had laying around in this size. And I don't recommend it because if you see the edges are not clean on this. But this is great acid-free tape if you're mounting a watercolor painting. It's, again, just what I had on hand in this size. Actually, I kind of like the little rough edges. So there we have it. There's our first page in our new watercolor journal book. It wasn't so scary. It's complete. It's done. We're moving on. The other thing I will tell you is if you do a page in your journal that you really just were frustrated with, every time you look at it, it triggers you. It gives you like anxiety because you were either just disappointed in the results. You don't have to look at it every day. That's the other thing that these little clips are really great for. So let's say, I don't want to smudge this page, but let's say over here, this painting is just not good and you don't want to look at it every day. Guess what you do? You clip this page to this page in your book and you just leave it like that. And you don't have to look at it anymore as you continue through your book. They're clipped together. You only have to look at it if you want to look at it. So just another helpful tip for you as you're building your watercolor journals. So thank you so much for painting with me today. These super simple first page ideas. Don't forget, you can just swatch. You can do basic technique practices, gradients, simple florals. You know, keep it simple. Don't over intimidate yourself on that first page because that blank page and blank journal is intimidating enough. So go at it with something you know. All right, so thank you so much for painting with me. I'm Shayna Cersei. Don't forget to check the description for a list of supplies and materials I use on a daily basis. Go ahead and like, comment. on the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who you also think might enjoy this watercolor journal journey. All right, y'all, take care. We'll be on to our next watercolor journal page very soon. Bye-bye.